Go for it.
All right, everyone, welcome to this month's All Facilitators Zoom. Thank you guys for being here. We have a couple awesome topics and people here joining us today. So if you have been in your email box recently or been in some of the threads for facilitators, we've had a pricing change in access consciousness that might affect the country you live in and your pricing. And as a facilitator affects you as far as all the clients you're working with and where they're from and all of that. So we're going to start with a bit of discussion and really and if you have any questions about that, Miss Francesca Fiorentini is here, our worldwide coordinator, to talk about that and some of the other big changes in access. And then we have on today Nicolette Erde as our guest to talk about creating your business bigger, greater, wider than you ever imagined possible, and a couple of her lovely team members too, to talk about how they work together, how they create. So Miss Francesca, do you want to start and kick us off with anything about, well, changes?
Yeah, thank you, Emily. Thank you, everyone. And I like as well to bring on with me Mr. Sean Van Horder. I think the other one, Sarah Watt, she's in, let me check if she is here. Hello, Sean.
Hello,
She's
hello.
in Japan. So before talking about pricing, or at least we don't have to talk about pricing. If you have any question, we are here to fulfill your doubts. But I like to, Gary, almost a week ago, was like last Wednesday, he invited us for lunch. We were all in Australia, and he mentioned already in another meeting that the desire to go beyond anything that we've been asking for, the desire for the demand for him and for access to be a multi-billion company requires a different way of looking, a different way of taking care of things, and more people to work with. I've been the worldwide coordinator since 2008, 19, whatever, it doesn't matter. Remember, just before COVID. And before me, Simone Milazas, she has been the worldwide coordinator for 18 years, when we were just in 4 countries at that time, right? So, and Gary say, when Simone quit, we will have required 6 people. But I showed up. And I showed up. They chose me. I didn't show up like a mushroom under a tree. And I chose it too. Susie Godzia, our tech leader, she's laughing. She's here with me. So what in on these notes, I was saying that Gary say, let's have a call, like a conglomeration of idiots called, how did they call us? The cremators. Why cremators, Gary? Because you are going to cremate all the bridges. I'm like, no, you guys, we don't want to kill you. But basically, it's a group of many, worldwide coordinators. So in this case, it will be myself. There is Sean Van Horden. Hello, Sean. Where are you?
I'm here.
I can't see you. Oh, look at you. Hello.
Hey. Hello, everyone.
Look, amazing gentlemen, right? That we are inviting. All the women are smiling. I agree. And then we also have Sarah Watt, that she's now in Tokyo. Probably some of you already know her. So, and all of us will work in different areas, but all for the greatest of the expansion. So here we go. Don't know if you want to say anything. Women that talks all the time, huh? It's good. Great. So any of you guys have any question regarding the pricing change we did have? Do you want to introduce a little bit how in that lunch, actually, we chose, Gary told us, let's change this. Maybe.
Do you want to just summarize a bit of what it is in case everyone hasn't read all the all the emails, just like a general whatever?
You might not receive your email translated yet, just in English.
Yeah, I can give a quick rundown on that. So at the lunch, the one thing that Gary told us, and he was very honest about it, is for the very first time in Access's history, it's in the rearage and paying its bills, and that's commission and all of the other obligations that Access has on a monthly basis. And so, and there's a lot of contributing factors to that, COVID being one of them. All of the event spaces, charging a lot more for us to rent these events. Inflation going up by 7%, especially here in the States and all over the world. So there's a lot of contributing factors to this, and the 65% just doesn't make sense anymore from Gary's point of view. So he assigned Francesca and I the task of going through and updating all of the pricing from all the countries that were at 65 are now being moved to 75%. And that change is effective as of now. So anything else you want to add to that, Francesca?
So if you never had a look, in our website, there is a page regarding pricing where we explain what global pricing is, what country pricing is, and everything, and how Gary has been building up he had an attention, him and Dane, of course, like on looking at all the different countries that were coming up. What was the political situation, the economical situation, all of that. It create a possibility for the people in the country to actually attend the access consciousness classes, right? So it's humongous. But at the same time, one of the things I want to say about the 65, it's one of the things we ask him, like, what do you get? Like that if we make them feel that they are poor, they will never reach greater. I remember when we lowered country that was 80% to 65 years ago, a lot of facilitators were very pissed of us. Some of those facilitators were asking for it. Some of them were like, no, we are not poor. Like, we got this. It's not, people are not like, guys, right? All of you have been choosing access, have been creating money for classes and everything. Money has never been a problem. Yes or no? When you chose that. When we say to people as a facilitator, like, please be aware, never align and agree with your clients' points of view regarding money. It's not empowering them. Being the question. So that's where Gary comes from too. So that's what I want to add as well. So what if it's the greatest possibility to create even greater, that we ever expected before.
Yeah, and one of Gary's asks is Access becoming $1 billion company, and what is that going to take? Well, that's going to require hiring a lot more people and expanding, and that's all additional costs that we'll have to bring in to make that work. So this is just part of the changes that are coming down the line, but it's all going towards the target of, rather than playing in the $20 to $30 million range, what is it going to take to be $1 billion company? So these changes that we're making now are all encompassed in that target that we have.
And can I ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen? So if Access will be a multi-billion multi-million dollar company, how the world will look at you as an access conscious facilitator? Susie is laughing. Like, oh my God, those access conscious facilitator, I want to have that. Because it's not just like you are part of this. We are all part of this. So everything that doesn't allow for this to actualize sooner than we ever thought possible, we will destroy and create all of that. Right, wrong, good and bad, but online show boys, box and beyonds, and perceive the world, the change, the earth, kids, everyone, like how, because one other thing as well, like, what are we doing this for? Ask you a question, like, if I say, oh, I'm doing it for consciousness, no matter what it is, that includes everything, right? Judges nothing. And Gary, lately, he yells at me a lot. It's in a way, it's not that he does, but it's also that, and it's required. It's a moment, like, why you just going around? Why you want to justify? Just do it. Go. What if it's the same for all of us? So that's it. Sorry, Sean. I'm not sorry, by the way. I always talk on. Yeah.
Does any, and I want to also say, if you guys have any specific questions about pricing, we do have an email that is pricing@accessconsciousness.com. Of course, you can also write to customer service at accessconsciousness.com. But I know I've been getting some other like personal emails with questions about certain countries and what's going on. But the best place to write for that really is pricing@accessconsciousness.com, because then the few people that know the answers to that and can respond to you will respond. Is there any other questions that anybody has, like general questions, or there's been some comments in the chat with gratitude for the changes. Anything else you guys have?
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
Awesome.
so Mona, if you want, I can answer. Oh, you got it, right? It's
You can answer it online. I just put it in the chat. So if you want to address it.
yeah, so Mona is asking why the classes, the SOP classes in April, or it's different. The SOP in April in Mexico is different. The SOP in Vienna, and the one in India. So in Europe, advanced classes are mainly all more expensive because we had to have 20% VAT. That's basically an average amount. Like if you're not European, you might not know it, but each country in Europe has a VAT that goes from 18% until 27%. That's Hungary, I think, is one of those that has 27. So we as a company, when we held classes in Europe, we have to pay VAT. So we did an average of 20%, and many years ago, we had to raise the price of the classes. Now, I can tell you the truth, since the USD is very strong, the difference is not much compared to the Europe price. And then the Australasian one it's a little bit lower because now the Australian dollars, it's a little bit lower than, it's less strong than the USD and the Europe one. So that's why you see a big difference, quite relevant difference. It's not a humongous one, but it's also, I love that because we have people like now attending classes online, no matter what, and they've been playing with this, and those the Australian one goes back and forth. So yeah, it might actually increase soon. Anyway, this is all speculation, but that's I hope it's more clear for you, Mona. That's it. And if you, Sean, want to translate me, because I have talk in English, that an interesting one.
It sounded really good, Francesca.
Good. Sometimes Dane does it. Okay, Francesca meant. Yeah, you too, Emily, if you get, yeah.
Well, I'd love to add just something. As you know, Gary has this ask of, being a $1 billion company, like what would that take? I immediately looked at, okay, right now there's about 7,000 people a month that take a bars class, which is phenomenal, right? And I was like, I wonder what would it take to have 1 million people a year going through a bars class? So I did the math, divided it by 12, the number of facilitators we have. Guess how many, if each of you facilitated one bars class a month, guess how many people would have to be in it to have 1 million people a year go through bars? It's only 10 people. And that would be 1 million people in a year. Like that's like 10 times what is now. I was like, wow. So that's why I was excited when I looked at that number and what would that be like, one, for all of your businesses and revenue streams, and then what that contributes to the organism of Access is really, really cool. And what if you could have, 100 people, 120 people in one class? what would that take? Which is what Nicolette's going to talk about too on the Zoom today, which is really cool. So are there any other pricing things that you guys want to ask or address before we kind of go into that creation chat?
If you are from Turkey or from Lebanon, check out your email in the next 2 days, like inbox. There is anything, we had review other things for you guys. Also, thank you for contributing and let us know when things are not really working anymore for your country. So in case there is any suggestion, any idea, or has Emily mentioned it before, just send us an email on pricing@accessconscious.com. If you don't remember the name, the email, just email customer service, they will forward, because through you, we become aware of your country situation, like, and what else it's possible. Truly. That's it. We're gonna rock it. Do the license prices also change? No, because the license prices don't have global pricing and country pricing, so those are the same. See, we made you pay. It's the same price no matter where you come from. It's good that we raise you the price. So look, let's make more money.
That is the same. And as you guys probably know, one of the classes you guys can renew your license with is the Global Foundation. It's not the only class. There's lots of many other ones, but that is coming up next week, March 10th through 13th. So if you guys are looking for a class to renew, it's going to be quite an incredible foundation with Gary and Dane as they're rewriting the whole manual.
It is.
I believe that class is now a prereq. So you have to attend the foundation live. It can't be purchased the Global Foundation later. We all have to be there. So that's a recent
change. As a certified facilitator, just let me clarify, because you have bars and face process, but as a CF.
I'm going to clarify because to keep your license, you need to actually attend online or in person. But if you're a CF, if you don't, there'll be a period of time where you don't have your license, but then you can do the replay to get licensed. You just won't be licensed till you do it.
Thank you for the clarification.
I love it. Everyone was like, whoa, it's Sean talking. Everyone's going to register. And I mean, if you think about it, it's 4 days with Gary and Dane and many other things happening. We have extra classes and stuff. And it's one of the cheapest class, if you look at money-wise. But it's always the one that create one of the greatest change worldwide. Because more people are getting together. How, you change one point of view and you make 300,000 other people access to change that point of view. So multiply, if we are 10,000 in class, what's the change that can occur through the globe? So, yeah, don't do it.
Awesome. And Megan just put the link in there for that. If you want to look and see what's included, all the extras with Foundation too, you can go to accessconsciousness.com/fiesta. Whether you're coming to Mexico or joining online for any or all of the things listed there. Got Global Foundation, Global Facelift, intros, lots of stuff.
Good.
Cool. And people are asking if CFs need to be on camera. I'll just clarify, you do not have to be on camera, just attending the class live or online.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it's also because you have to, that's the class that we facilitate as FCF. So it just, it's like using the resource to become a successful facilitator. I always see like people renew at the end because they had to do it. And the one that actually were present in first line like that and asking questions, it's obvious the one that they are the more successful because they are using the tools and, being present with the change and all of that. It's pretty obvious. One day I asked to Gary and I thank him, like all the reference material we have, if you attend foundation, you can start by the first part. And then if you did COP, you can start, anyone can start buying the reference material. But when you become a CF, you have to go through all these 6,000 and I don't know how many more pages, maybe Pam, no? And then we have a test. We have a test, a questionnaire, a survey to fulfill every year. We renew our license. And I said to Gary, this has been an amazing idea. Just start collecting it. And I'm like, I know. And I want to give the tools to the people to become successful. Like, it's great facilitator, because more you are aware of everything, like more you are actually ready and to create the space to facilitate. So, oh, well, I love this. No one has question about pricing. We changed that.
Great.
All the
Yeah,
needs of reactive realities. Yeah, we're running. It works. Don't even remember years ago there was just this like storm break, you know, big every time a question regarding pricing. I think it's
Francesca, can I say just one thing about that? It's like once we raise the prices, actually more people are showing up for the classes already. So I'm just saying, whatever you guys did, awesome. Thank you so much.
And I was talking with Sean before coming here in the meeting, because I also was coming to Paris because I was on the car. And because tomorrow we had the first solo with Grace, COP, and then at the same time Simone is doing a COP in Tokyo, and Anthony is doing an opening of the Cinto in Hungary. There are many things going on. But I was listening to Megan Hill reading the Right Riches for You book. We don't have that book translated in many languages, I'm sorry. But there is a part where he really like talk so well about you value yourself and how much, you know, when you don't value what you be and what you do, of course you don't make money. But that's the same thing with the pricing. When you give a value to what you facilitate, and we raise that, as just Rudrani say, how much more appealing it is for the rest of the world. I was like, thank you, Megan. I know it's a book that written by Gary and Dane, but it was really, really, really nice too. So if you had the possibility, maybe download it, or I know it's not in all the languages, but it's a great book. It's a great theme book that might give you so many insight regarding money, riches, wealth, and fun. Hello, Sarah. Hello.
thank
Good.
you guys. We put the link to the Right Riches book in the email as well when we send the follow-up for this call too.
Good.
Awesome.
Anything else, John?
No, I'm good.
Come to Global Foundation. Huh?
See you there. Thank
We
you
will
guys
be
for being
there.
on for pricing and all the questions, not questions, but thank you for thank you for being
Thank
on
you.
for that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, let's
Now they have to join Nicolette. That's
yeah,
amazing.
shift gears into creating your access business, because there were some creation questions coming in the chat about how do I start getting people to my classes, or having, you know, a bars class with 10 people, 100 people, where do you begin? So we have Nicolette with us today, who's a certified facilitator, and a couple of beautiful members from her team. So Nicolette, hello.
Hi, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, there you are. I was like,
Awesome.
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So if you guys, some of you may have seen, you know, we have many different Facebook groups and places where people share photos of their bars classes and what's going on. But we really wanted to invite you, Nicolette, today, because you have a wonderful story, you know, of how you found access and really going from not like having no money, not having a job, anything, and completely changing your world to start your access business, and going from nothing to really now creating bars classes with hundreds of people. And so I know a lot of people are curious, and I would just love to ask you, like, do you want to give us a little bit of that story and background, and then kind of walk us through with you and your team, and we can take questions. You guys raise your hand, put them in the chat, about really going from starting from nothing and then creating wider and bigger than probably we all think is possible.
So thank you. I I was wondering before, where should I start today? And yeah, I would really start at the beginning. So I had an accident. I told my story in Simon's podcast recently, so I wouldn't go there. So if you guys want to listen to it, you can go and listen to the podcast.
It's wonderful. I'll put the link in the replay because if you guys, it's a wonderful podcast with you and Simone. So we'll definitely include that.
Thank you. So, so I had an accident and I wasn't happy in my life, but I couldn't explain what's going on. I was just like not happy. After work, I would go back home, drinking alcohol every night and laying on the floor, watching the ceiling and wondering like why I'm here, what I'm doing here. And I used to be a hairdresser, but mostly like teacher at the hair school. And I was successful in a way. I had my own salon. I got jobs at huge companies. So I was able to travel around Europe and teaching hairdressers how to use different products. So, and it was really fast for me. I did it in 3 years. And everyone around me, they were like, oh my God, I'm so successful. I must be happy. But in the meantime, I just wasn't a happy person. And so one day I find myself in this accident and I injured myself so much that I wasn't able to move for 1 year. So I had to be home. And this time I was staying home and someone recommended me a class. It was a releasing class, a 2-day class with my facilitator, András Palacsko. He's a Hungarian CF. It was an access consciousness class. So I heard about the class and I had no money to pay for the class, but I kind of knew I'm going to be there. I felt like this is something that could change my life. And after my accident, I was at home alone. I was single. I used to be a hairdresser, so I lost my job because of the accident. So I haven't made any money. But one thing was really interesting is that as soon as I got home and I had space, all the magic started just showing up in my life. So my neighbor came by and she gave me a car key so I could drive around the city. Money just came into my account. I didn't even know how. And all this magic just started to show up. And so when I heard about the class, I had no money to attend, but I just knew I'm going to be there. And somehow I created the money. I showed up in class. And András started to talking about something really weird, access consciousness, but I haven't speak any English back then. So like, I couldn't even understand, like, access what? And I used to speak Italian because I used to live in Rome, and in high school, I haven't really learned English. But András was talking about this thing and he said, you know, guys, I'm selling this book. So at the lunch break, you can come and look at the book. The book was the Money Workbook. And I was like, oh, I want to know that book. So I went and looked at the book and I was like, how much is that? He said, $30. I'm like, $30 for this book? There are only lies and questions. Why would people pay for this? And I was like, I don't have money for this. And I was the kind of person, I just told Dane today, I'm like, I love your story about your jelly sandwich on the way to San Francisco. And people were laughing at you, but I was the same person. I showed up in class and I never had money for lunch. I could pay for the class, barely pay for the class. And I was eating all the snacks in the snack station because I had no money to afford. And so the next day I showed up, this book was pulling me so hard. I'm like, man, I need to buy this book, but I don't have the money. So I kind of find some money at home. I went back the next day and I told András, I'm like, hey, do you have a copy of that book from yesterday? He's like, yeah, sure. So I bought the book. I went home and I started highlighting the book. And it's really amazing story. If I go back to the book, even today, all those words, which I never heard before, I'd highlighted with double colors. It's possibility, change, choice, power, money. And when I'm going back to the book these days, I'm realizing I didn't know what that was, but I did. I knew what is in the book and I wanted to know more. So I went back home, and back then in Hungary, we did not really have many facilitators. So I couldn't find things on the internet. So I started to research and I found Dane And I'm like, oh, this guy is so interesting. It's like the energy that he had. And I started listening to him on YouTube. I haven't speak English, so I started put subtitles on it. And I was listening to Dane, reading and watching. So it was really interesting. I was just like a child learning a language. I was watching, listening, and I was like, I realized it was really interesting. So at the very beginning, my life haven't changed that much. So from the outside, I was still making the same amount of money. I was still living in the same place. I was still traveling with tram and bus and metro. But in the inside, something has changed. I knew I have possibilities. I just knew I'm going to change my life. And I'm sharing this with many people now because it was 7 years ago and I had changed everything. And we have so many people, 400 people in the bars class. So everything is really different in my life. But for the first year or two, things wasn't really changing that dynamically from the outside, from them, I would say from the physical point of view. But the inside, how I was living my life was so different. And I had the information. I knew that I'm going to change this. I knew I can change it. And that sense, so I had a call with Christelle. She was my guest on my membership this month. And I just told her, and we were both amazed about this thing, which I would say, I got the sense of possibilities back. And that was something that was so different from everything else that I find or tried before. So that was my story. And when I started to using the tools, I got back to work, and then I met someone, an American guy, we got married, and I moved to San Francisco. And Julie Touton, she's on the call, I saw her. So I met Julie there, so we were swapping bars, but I wasn't really doing much. And in a couple months later, my ex-husband decided to leave me. So he bought me a flight ticket and flew me back to Hungary 2 days before Christmas. And I came back, no money, no jobs, nothing, no boyfriend, no dogs. And I find myself just like here, and I didn't know what to do with my life. And I was like, well, what do I want? What do I want to do? And I realized that I have nothing left, only these tools. And I kind of turned back to the tools and I started using them. And I met András, my mentor, who was my first facilitator. And I told him, I was like, hey, András, what would it take to have 1,000 people in a bars class? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, what would it take to have 1,000 people in a bars class in a year? And he's like, why in a year? You can have 1,000 people in one bars class. And I'm like, well, I would be happy with 1,000 people in a year. And I haven't really realized back then that I just chose that. I chose to have more people in my classes. And I realized when I started to have more people in my classes, I started to enjoy them more. Not because of the money, because of the change that we had created, what we had created in those classes. And I just moved to Mexico City. I'm back to Budapest now, but I moved to Mexico City. And Luis, who is another CF, you might know him, he called me and he's like, hey, Nicolette, you're in Mexico City. Do you want to have a class? We are here for you. We can help you. I'm like, yeah. So we organized the class, 2 classes actually, and no one showed up. Not one person, no one registered to my class. And I'm here in Hungary, 400 people, easy peasy. But I went to Mexico. And why I'm sharing this, because it's not wrong. That's fine. That's okay. Because I put so much energy, and it wasn't like one choice. As just Dane used to say, it's not one significant choice that you make. It's a lot of small choices along the way that you make. And so what I knew where I want to go, and I really committed to myself. And even everyone was judging me at the beginning. My team will tell you, because Reka and Belle is here. Everyone was judging me, and no one understand me. And I just focused on what do I want my life be like in 5 years, 10 years, where do I want to go? But the main thing was for me, and I think this is what allows me to create these big classes, is that I remember my life back then. And I know why I started to sharing the tools, because at the beginning, I wasn't even a BF. I was just like, driving to the hospital and creating a video and sharing with people, hey guys, I'm driving to the hospital for my physiotherapy, and this is what happened to me. And all this magic just shows up. And I shared that. And people loved it. And so even today with my team, what is the most important thing? We do 80-20. We do 80% cool stuff and 20% advertisement. So what we do, we give people tools and the sense of possibilities, that they have choice, they have possibilities, they can change everything. And I'm still the girl from the neighborhood. I'm not speaking any access language. I'm not using the cluing statement, because when people come to class, they are ready. But all these people who come to my classes or come up on a Facebook Live, they don't really know what we are talking about. So I'm really careful with that, and I really speak like a kitchen language, I would say. I'm really trying to stay away from speaking an access language, not because I don't like it. I know just most of the people can receive it. And what's cool about that, most people in my classes are brand new. So at the beginning of the class, I'm always like, hey, raise your hand if this is your very first time meeting these tools. And most of the people have never heard about anything, not even had a bar session before this class. So this is the very first time they hear about the clearing statement, about anything, because so I'm sharing my experience with people in my Facebook Lives, and I have Facebook groups and Telegram groups. What I'm doing is mostly like sharing my life, my experiences. I'm being really vulnerable. Just Gary used to say, if you are a CF, you have no secrets. And I don't really have one. People mostly know everything about me, not because I want to share my life, but I don't hide my parts. And they really can align with my stuff. I'm sharing everything, all my stupid stuff, or I'm everything with them. And so they can really just they when you look at their lives and my life, they're like, oh, she does that too. Okay, I might not wrong. I'm not screwed up. And this is what I like. So I'm really there for people. I know everything about them. Anyone in my class, I really like people and I like to talk to them. And also in my Facebook group, I really pay attention what people comment and what they do, not because I'm always there, but like I'm scanning and I'm really paying just attention, being present with everything. And what I realized is that having this connection with them, it changes things. And so, sometimes when we are in the CF training and you guys are sharing what not like we should do, but what is nice to do to have more people in your classes, I'm always laughing inside because I'm like, I'm doing all of this, like everything. And I never trusted anyone, even Dane. When I go to a class, I listen and I take away everything he said. I try, and I have my own experience with all these tools. So I used to say I'm like a tool junkie, and I don't trust anyone. So I try everything. And that's what I think is so crucial for me, is that anyone who shows up and says, hey, I don't think this works, I don't believe this, I'm not sure. What would you do, Nicolette, if one day we would realize all of this is just bullshit? And I'm like, well, not for me, because I know it works. I tried everything, I did everything, and no one can take away from me my own experience. So that's what I tell people in every class I do. I'm like, don't trust me. Anything I say, just take away what you like and try them. If something is too weird for you, it's for another time. You might be ready for that sometimes. And I always tell them the truth. That I showed up in my first class. I was like, these guys are crazy. I'm not going to touch anyone in my first foundation class. And it was really hard for my facilitator because I was like, I'm not touching anyone. I didn't came for this. I want you to talk. Leave me alone. I'm not touching people. And now, you know, what you resist the most is your biggest superpower. It showed up. And it turns out that I have some talent with bodies, but I'm still resisting it. So what is the most important thing for me about creating my access bars business is that I always ask myself, why did I start? Why did I do this? Why do I do this? And I always remind myself like why I started to do the whole thing. And I started to do for myself. My life was sucked. My relationship with my mom was bad. I have never had money. I was a terrible person in my relationships and I was just not happy and I could change that. And I thought everyone should know about this and it's not a big deal. And so I started to just share my experience with people. And along the way, I have changed so much. And for sure, I'm not the person that I used to be, but in the meantime, I always remind myself, and my team can tell you, every week we have a kickoff meeting and the creation meeting and all of that. And what we ask all the time in every meeting, like, hey guys, why do we do this? Because, you know, when we have long hours, sometimes before classes, we have to work until 11 p.m. or even longer hours. And when we are there and we are tired and we are overwhelmed, we always we have this question to us, like, why do we do this? And then you're happier to answer a message 11 p.m. before class, or you're happier to do things. And that's what we do. I always give this picture to my team. We have 7 people full-time and we have 13 people part-time. And in classes, bars classes, we have basically 30 people or 40 people. This time we have 400 people, so we're gonna have like 50 people basically working in class because we need people to show the points and blah, blah, blah.
Can you talk about that, Nicolette, though? Because I think that's one of the beautiful, when we were chatting about your class and I was like, okay, so when you have 400 people, obviously you need help with other people in the room, like with bars points and stuff. And you and your team, I was like, who comes to help? You know, and you're like other bars facilitators, you know, in Hungary that are there, come to contribute. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, like kind of growing a team and then that contribution in that all the other facilitators, how they come together for the classes? And then we have a couple questions we can get to after that.
Awesome. So one thing is really important. So at the beginning, when I started, for the first year, no one showed up for my bars classes. No one. I just had a conversation today with one of my friends, and he told me, do you remember those days when I called you that I want to come to your class, and you every time I signed up for your class, you called me that no one else signed up, so you cancel your class, and it was going on for 1 year. And when finally people started to come to my class, I was doing my classes in my living room, and I had one massage table. And one day I was sitting and I'm like, well, I'm wondering why people don't come to my class, because they don't have the space to come to my class. People wouldn't, and I hate people to come to my home. I'm like, well, it's really hard for them to come to my class if I hate them to come there. So I find one place. It was a small room with 2 massage tables. And I rented the room and I was so shocked that the class was full, 4 people. And I was like, wow, this works. So the next time I chose another venue, I could fit 8 beds and we had full house. We were fully booked. Reiko was there, my colleague, she's here. And I was like, oh my God, I need a bigger venue. So I went to another venue. It was so expensive. It was so out of my comfort zone because back then it was a lot of money for me. So we went to a bigger venue. And we had so many people that we had to do bars classes every weekend. So I was like, okay, we need another space. So we find a small hotel with a kind of nice room. We went there. And the first class we had there, we had massage tables outside of the room because we couldn't fit people in the room. So I was like, oh my God, guys, we need to find another venue. So we find another hotel. It was even more expensive. I was like, and everyone who had me, they're like, and what if no one comes? I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess I just pay for the room, but why not? And so we were full. And for the next time, we needed another venue. And I was like always going for more. And I was like, well, if we could we could fit in this room, I guess if I find a bigger venue, more people would come. So we went to a bigger venue. We had even more people. When we had like 60 people, I couldn't believe. I stepped into the room and I'm like, oh my God, so many people, everyone waiting for me. I'm like, I was kind of embarrassed. And so I was like, well, let's go for another venue. So we went to another hotel. And then for the next time, we had 100 people sign up. And I'm like, we can't fit in there. So we find another venue, 100 people. And my team was so happy. They were like, finally, we find this venue. Nicolette is happy, 100 people, stop. And so I didn't pay attention for the registration and realized that we have, for the next class, we had 120 people plus kids. And I'm like, hey guys, did you realize that we have 120 people? They're like, oh, we can call them that they can't come. I'm like, excuse me? You're not gonna call them that they can't come. Go and find another venue. And they're like, but every month we have to find another venue. I'm like, yeah, that's the thing. So we find that other venue was so hard. Finally, 200 people. We had 100 massage table. Everything went well. And the end of the class, I was like, well, guys, if we could do 200 people, we can do 400. So this time we are going for 400. And so along the way, as we were growing, I realized, we made mistakes. Let's say when the class started to get bigger, we had no hostess or people who can help in the room where to go. People were kind of lost. They didn't know what to do, or they need to look for a massage table. So we had a little chaos sometimes, but along the way, we were always watching what's next. What can we add to the business? What people could we add? And what I realized, people were so amazed by creating these huge classes that people started to call me CFs and BFs. And so what we do in classes, we always share a post. It's like, hey guys, we're going to have this big class. We need 20 people, or 40 people. And you have to be a bars facilitator because you have to have people with the points, or if they have questions. And everyone was so happy to contribute. It wasn't about no one was doing jealousy, or no one was doing like, I don't know, fighting or blah, blah, blah. It's just, it was really hard to decide who can come or who not. And many CFs in the class, and they are so happy to being there. And it's just, yeah, it's I guess it's also because really early on, I realized, because I learned so much from András about how to be with other facilitators. He was always so open. And so from the very beginning, I always taught people who came to my classes, like, hey, go to other facilitators class, try someone else too. Don't just come to me. Even when I was doing bar sessions, I was like, hey, go and try someone else, ask questions about this. You don't have to come to me. And when people were asking me, hey, Nicolette, how often I have to come to you for a bar session? I was like, I don't know. You know that. Ask yourself. When you feel like you could take an advantage from one session, just come back. But hey, just go to someone else too. And I was always open. And I never tell people where to go. I'm just like, hey, there are a lot of really amazing facilitators. Ask yourself, well, who could be a contribution to me? And I think because of my way of being with this, because I don't really have walls and barriers around this, I think all my, let's say, coworkers or other facilitators here in Hungary, they kind of like it. And they feel included. And I'm always telling to everyone, I'm like, I'm not creating this for myself. When 200 people shows up in a bars class, they're gonna go and take another class and they like these tools. If you guys are having an amazing class or a membership, they will come. And I always tell them the end of the class with Reka, she's my community manager. She's a bars facilitator. She has her own business too. So that's what I like about my team, because I want them to create. I don't want them to be my slave and help me to grow or be someone. It's a creation about us. So we create together. And that's the main point. Every week we go back to that point. It's like, hey guys, what do you want? What do you want your life to be like? How can I contribute to you? And because we have this way of being with each other, I feel that they're just here for me and I'm here for them. And it's really nice to wake up on Monday morning and having those messages from them like, hey, Nicolette, how can we contribute to you? What can we do for you? How can we help you? I'm like, it's amazing. And it's a big work because our class will be the end of April and we are already working on the class every day. And it's really nice to see how they come up with ideas, how we can make the class even nicer, smoother, and how can we help people to have the best day ever. And as a CF, most of the CFs, I guess, they like to do foundation classes. But what I like about the bars classes is that it's just one day. And when people come into class, you can see the construction, you can see they are excited, you can see like they come in with all this stuff going on. And the end of the day, you see 200 people living like so happy and so shocked that, oh, there are other people that we're just like, hi, so cool. It's really good to see. And what I like about my classes is that I'm not even advertising them in the access groups. It's more like for people who wants to, release stress or have a better life or just have something. And I really encourage them to become a bars facilitator because a friend of mine, before I became a CF, I didn't really want to be a CF. I was taking the classes for myself to change my life. And after a SOP class, he asked me, he's like, hey, you have all the prereqs. Are you becoming a CF? I'm like, no, I don't want to sit in the room with weird people for 4 days. That's not my thing. And he's like, well, yeah, but you can walk around in the world as a CF. What would it give you? And I'm like, oh, I like that. So I became a CF. I'm not doing classes. And when I became a CF, I'm doing foundation classes, but my really big favorite is the access bars because it gives really simple tools. And if I think about my life, I'm using those tools, what I learned at the bars class. And if you don't go beyond, you can change your life easily. And so for me, this is what is with me all the time. So what I think how we create a big class is, I think, being that energy, an invitation for people and inspiring them every single day. And sometimes you inspire them with your stupidity, how stupid you are and what stupid things you do every day. And I think this is the way. So always choosing bigger. And if someone wants to have a bigger class, invest in people, invest in bigger, like this venue that we are going into, it's about like $50,000 or so with all the tech and everything, because we don't have everything. And we had the conversation before. I'm like, oh my God, we don't even make this much money. How much this class costs? But I was like, I'm doing it anyway. I don't care, because it creates something in the world. It creates something different. And so yeah, this is what we do here in Hungary. And just let you know, guys, if you don't know about Hungary, it's only 10 million people, super negative. That's what people would say. And still we have so many people. And if in Hungary we can do that, anywhere else, I guess it's so much easier. I remember Brandon came to teach a class here in Hungary, and he texted me the first day. He's like, how can you live here? Oh my God, I want to die. People are so unhappy here. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, I don't really care. But yeah, I just look for the people who are looking for change. But it's still
It's a great
true.
example of your point of view creates your reality, you know,
Yeah.
what you can create. And there's
Yeah.
so much, Nicolette, gratitude in the chat, like just for the inspiration of really kind of going through the story of, you know, asking for bigger venues, building a team, like all of that. So I just want to acknowledge all you guys saying thank you in the chat.
Thank you.
And then we have one question. Do you want to take, let's take Louise as a
Yes.
question, and then we can sort of wrap it up.
Yes.
Louise.
Hi guys, can you hear me? Okay, awesome. First of all, thank you, because a lot of the things that you talked about addressed a good portion of my question. But also, I've noticed one thing with my own business is that when I have like that first person that chooses the class, then for me, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm relaxed, and then the class gets bigger. But until that first person signs for the class, it's just so, ugh. So can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yes. So I knew. So when you are making something significant, you are pushing the energy, and then you might heard Simon saying that the relationship means distance between two objects. So when you're pushing the energy, you are pushing away everything. So what I realized, I was always pushing away people because it was so important for me to have people in my class. Mostly at the beginning, I'm being honest with you guys, for the money, because I did not have so much. And I was like, that was my thing, making money. And so what I did, I hired someone. She worked for me part-time. I paid her hourly. And as soon as I hired her, I was like, okay, so Rita, this is your responsibility to look at who registered for the class. Because before, what I was doing, I was looking at, hey, is anyone registered for the class already? But no one showed up. And when I take away my attention from that, like watching all the time, like, there is any person, is there anyone, is there anyone? So it was her responsibility. I realized it became so much easier. So what we were doing, I asked my team, hey guys, can you let me know how much people we have one day before class, so I will know. And I don't pay attention to that at all. So that was my solution. And honestly, when I had my first person who helped me with the class, and you know, you don't have to hire someone at the beginning to and pay them with actual money if you don't have. You can make a kind of deal, is like you give them sessions, or you give them the class or recordings, or whatever ways you can contribute, and just having someone who helps you with your classes. And it's also nice because if I learned this from Krista Crawford. I took a bunch of classes with her, and she's really amazing with the business stuff. And I learned this from Krista to do a brain drain every day. So you kind of like writing down what you have to do, and you go through the whole thing and asking questions is like, which is the 3 that moves the needle? And I forget about the other stuff. But I also ask the question, like, what can I delegate? But the funny part is I had no team members for years. I couldn't delegate, but I just made a point for me. Okay, this is something that I would like to take away, give it someone else to do. And I really had the awareness when I was looking for team members or people working with me. So which are the things that I would like to delegate to someone else? And I think this is what you could do, taking away. And one thing, like another question that I would ask, that would be, where am I pushing the energy that I should have been pulling it, and just turning around. And the other thing is, you can always invite people by, I always ask my class who would be a contribution, and just find them energetically and just pulling some energy through them. And I have a big membership, 1,200 people in the membership. And yesterday we had team meeting, and my team were like, oh, some people are leaving the membership. I'm like, how cool is that? Thank you. And I'm like, what would it take to all the people leave the membership who are not satisfied or who hates me? And today they called me that many people quit today. So they canceled the membership and they're like, Nicolette, you should not ask this question. I'm like, well, that's not really contributing to my business or to the other people in the group. If there are some people who are not satisfied, they put their energy into the whole thing and it changes things. And when they leave, you are like, people don't know why, but they actually feel better. So I'm always doing that. So, and when, and another thing, which I really like, when someone cancels the class, like let's say they register and then along the way, they are like, oh, I can't come, this and that. I know it's good if they cancel because 10 more people can show up. It's always 10 more people who shows up. And that was my point of view along the way. When someone canceled, I was like, how cool is that? Now 10 people can show up. Good, thank you. And it was true. People just came. It was so amazing. And another tool, which Heather Nichols taught me, really when someone shows up for the class to register, really be just present with that person, just energetically, and ask the question is like, just say thank you. And how does it get any better than that? And what else is possible? It's so simple. And one time I had a membership and it didn't go well. And I heard this tool from Heather. And finally one person registered and I was like, wow, thank you. How amazing. And I looked at her name and I was like, oh, I don't know, it was, let's say, Angela. I was like, oh, Angela, thank you, Angela, for coming to my membership. Thank you. How does it get any better than that? And then another people showed up. And then other people, I was looking at her name. I'm like, oh, Peter, thank you for coming to this thing. How amazing. How does it get any better than that? I was playing with that. And in one day, I had 80 registrations. It was like, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh, well, I should have using these tools that I got. I don't know if you feel lighter, but I hope so that it helped. And honestly, I think it's really simple.
Yes, thank you so much. It was amazing. And thank you for sharing everything.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Thank you, Nicolette. I'm jumping in here for Emily. She had to go. But thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you? Thank you, everyone, for leaning in and for receiving the magic that Nicolette is creating in the world and knowing that you get to create it too. We're grateful for all of you. Thank you, translators. Thank you, team. What else is possible? And we're going to say bye.
Bye.